And all the poultry say, bark, bark, bark. Good morning. If this is a strangeness competition, where do I sit on the scale? Am I like pretty much leading on the top of the leaderboard of the strangeness scale? Weird, yes, I know, weird. Okay. Let's try to make some sense out of this. Probably the most sensible thing that I will say today is I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land, the Whadjuk Noongar peoples. I pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. Hang on, I've got to pop out the chat, and I've got to set it to live chat so I don't get a curated, filtered, reordered, whatever version. And good morning to first up on the list, Crispian, Michael Wise, Jordan Reese, Simon is here, Stephen W. Oh, it says Superhouse TV. That's me. Why does it say that I'm here? Probably because I was in the chat. Mitchell, also Mitch Davis, John Whips, some call it fun, David Howes, Luminator, Tech Nebulous, Gavin is here, Imi is here, Don S from NZ, Mark Laguda, Alastair, good morning. I've lost track of, I've been clicking on this thing and lost track of who I have clicked on because there is a bit of a lag involved. Scott, did I say hello to Alastair? Hello again, Alastair, just in case. The Lane, Any Mules, Mike Carden, Henrik, Keith, Stephen, good morning. Oh, Mike. Seeing Mike's name in there reminds me. Good news! Yes, I went back to being beaten up yesterday. First time in 8 weeks. Because, as many of you will know, I have had a shoulder injury since probably December last year, which has been deteriorating, becoming worse and worse over time. I kept re-injuring it at Jiu-Jitsu and at Muay Thai. And I I got to the point where, so if I back up a little bit just to show you, about 2 weeks ago, I couldn't lift my right hand above like head height. It got to a point where I couldn't actually shave my head because I couldn't reach because my shoulder was so locked up. And I've been to a physio. Turns out that after the rotator cuff injury, I then developed adhesive capsulitis. And I've been having... hang on, I've got to mute. I've been having some rehab. My coach Brian has been helping with rehab as well. And I've got a huge amount of range of motion back in my shoulder now. So I did striking again yesterday and it was awesome. So good. Which meant that I had to take time out from watching the Craig Jones Invitational. But them's the breaks. Alright, so where are we? Don S asked, did I watch any of the CJI? Yes, I watched all of the CJI. Yeah, Crispian says I've still got frozen shoulder. Yeah. So one of the things that I'm probably going to have to do is the thing where they inject saline into the joint to expand it and improve range of motion. The rehab really hurts. Like the stretches and things that I have to do for freeing it up, very, very painful. But, oh well. Alastair said, I have a Temu special electron microscope on my desk. On your desk. Yeah, isn't the joke that all things from Temu are like 1/20th scale? So if you order an electron microscope, it'll probably end up being, this big. Yes, so it's on now. Yes, I know. Okay, so no spoilers, Don. If you're watching it, I do not want any spoilers. It's actually kind of a funny story. So for those of you who don't know, I know that the vast majority of people watching this now have absolutely zero interest in grappling or jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general. But there is this whole thing going on right now, which is just, it is amusing the hell out of me. There is this very kind of funny thing happening in the jiu-jitsu world. So I'll give you the summary. There's the event that is considered to be like, it's referred to as the Olympics of Jiu-Jitsu, is an event that takes place every 2 years. It's called ADCC, which stands for Abu Dhabi Combat Club, and it's originally bankrolled by a member of the Saudi royal family, and the best grapplers in the world compete at ADCC, and it's this big event that it's held in a big arena, and if you just to get there is really, really hard. You have to go through trials, and basically you have to win like regional trials in order to win a place just to get into it. So getting in is a really big, a really big deal. The thing is that it's turned into this huge event, like a many multi-million-dollar event. Lots of fanfare and very high production values and fireworks and big arenas and stuff like that, pay-per-view income. And the athletes aren't paid I don't think they were paid at all to compete. So you would have to do all of the training and get there. This is basically like the best in the world who train full time. This is not people who just do this like after work. This is pro athletes right at the peak of their game, and they're working full time doing this. And if you get in and you get through all the brackets and you win like the main event, you are the ADCC world champion. The prize is $10,000, which is pretty pitiful. And that's if you win in the men's category. If you win in the women's category, I think it was like $2,000 was the prize. It's just ridiculously low. And so there was this thing going on where there's how do I characterize him? There's an Aussie grappler, a guy named Craig Jones, who he trained here in Melbourne for a while. He's from Adelaide originally, and then he moved to Melbourne and trained with Lachlan Giles, not all that far from me. and he also trained with Daniel Schuart, who is my old training partner from Extreme. And so Daniel's now got his own gym, and Craig went over to the US and ended up training. Anyway, this is a short story that's going to turn into a long one. I'll try to jump towards the end. So Craig is a nutcase. He's one of these bigger than life personalities that has taken the classic Aussie approach of being a shit stirrer and just amped it up. He hasn't just amped it up to 11, like he's broken the knob, turned it up off the end of the scale. And he takes the piss out of everything. He's really, really funny guy. And so he ended up in the US training at what was considered to be the top jiu-jitsu gym in the world, under the top coach in the world, John Danaher. There was a big split, broke apart, started his own gym, and he ended up complaining that ADCC was not paying their athletes enough. And it was one of these little things where there were like these offhand comments of him needling them because he's a shit stirrer. He would just joke about it, and he would complain about things like they pay the drummers at ADC, like the people who just like do the drums, play the drums more than they pay the athletes. And he got some snarky response back, which was like, oh, well, if you think you could do better, then run your own event. And he said, okay then. And he went off and he managed to get $3 million of funding. And it went from, in the space of a couple of weeks, it went from snarky comments to, I am now running an event where I'm going to pay $1 million in each winning bracket, and I will pay people to attend. And the funny thing was, to win ADCC, the grand prize, if you won like the whole thing, you would win a $10,000 prize. So Craig Jones said, I am going to pay $10,001 as the attendance fee. And that event is on right now. Day one was yesterday, and it was epic. There were some incredible matches. And day two, which is the semi-finals and the finals, is on. Started 11 minutes ago. It is streaming at this very moment. So if I wasn't here talking to you, I would be watching the Craig Jones Invitational. And in related news, so I mentioned that Craig used to train here in Melbourne when he lived here so he used to train with Daniel, and Daniel is competing, or has competed in ADCC, because the other thing was, to make it even funnier, Craig said, not only am I going to run an event in competition with you and pay an appearance fee of $1 more than your winner's fee, your winner's prize, I'm going to run it on the same weekend. So ADCC is on this weekend, and so is the Craig Jones Invitational. And a whole lot of the top competitors who were going to compete at ADCC said, nope, we're out. We're going to CJI instead. Yeah. Don't tell me, Don. I do not want any spoilers. I'm going to be watching CJI after this. Yeah, okay. So, anyway, that's the very brief summary, that there is this hilarious thing going on at the moment in combat sports. Mitchell R said that the MMA thing, kind of, yeah. Well, MMA is mixed martial arts, which encompasses jiu-jitsu. So jiu-jitsu is one of the core competencies, I suppose, of MMA. Don S asked, what are we coding today? Well, we have some options. There are a few things. Okay, a couple of things. Before I get into thermal camera stuff and Raspberry Pi stuff. Excuse me. Oh, that's right. I was just going to say, I just saw that my friend Daniel, who I used to train with before I switched to Summit Jiu-Jitsu, was, he fought Conan Duarte yesterday, and he lost by violin armbar, which is a horrible position to be in. Not as bad as some, but it's a type of armbar that can come on extremely quickly. It's very dangerous if you end up trapped in that position. But, Daniel, why the hell did you end up with your arm extended like that? That's a... Yes, I know. Daniel could beat the crap out of me with both his arms tied behind his back, but still. It's not like I would last 1 second against Conan Duarte, but still. No, don't stick your arm out, Daniel. Remember, T-Rex arms, T-Rex arms. Yeah, so RGB LEDs. There was a question in Discord yesterday. I'm going to jump back to... I'm in Discord for once. I actually have it open. I'm looking for the project, Testomatic. That's right. The Rat chat asked about MLX 9640 sensors, and who else was it? Someone asked about RGB LEDs. Oh, here we go. David G. Bell asked about it, and this is cool. David, because I don't know, there are different identities in Discord versus YouTube, etc. Matching, and then there are real life names. I have this real problem that I just can't match them up. It's like a multi-way thing. I've got to link this person's real name is this person on YouTube, and it's this identity on Discord, and this on Twitter or whatever. No, it's not X, it's Twitter. And so I don't know who David G. Bell is. I want to... Yeah, so I think it's probably okay to show this because David posted this picture in... Where is it? I'm going to do open in browser. Shitter, yes, says Michael. If you use the Chinese pronunciation of the X and it becomes a sh, Twitter has become shitter. This is a cool thing. Very cool. I'm going to pull this up in just a second on the screen. It was posted in Discord, so it should be fine to share this. And it wasn't in a DM, it was just like, oh, Twix, says Jordan. Yeah, Twix is a good, I hadn't heard that one, that's a good alternate name. So this is a PCB. And yeah, as I was saying, I'm pretty sure it's okay to show this because it's not the actual design, it's just the overall layout, and it was posted in Discord in the public channel. And what you can see here, you might, at a first glance, if you don't know what you're looking at, when I first saw this from a distance, like just the thumbnail of this image, I knew instantly what it was because I am a train geek. Well, I'm a former train geek. And what you're looking at here is a representation of the position of trains or the status of trains across a line. And if you zoom right in, you can see that these things represent stations. So look, Baker Street, Wembley Park, Preston Road, this is part of the London train system. Euston Square, King's Cross and St Farringdon, Barbican, Moorgate. So these LEDs, these are RGB LEDs, I believe, represent the position of trains along the track and whether they are at a station or in between a station, etc. So this is a Aldgate platform 1, 2, 3, 4, Metropolitan Line. Yeah, it's a status board. The idea is you can glance at this and you can see where all the trains are and what's going on with them. Mitch says, I don't spot trains, I spot gunzels. One spotted. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, a gunzel is a term for someone, basically a train spotter. You know, the sort of people who worry about why was this particular locomotive travelling in this direction with this rear marker light attached on the left when it should have been attached on the right, and yes, that sort of thing. Anyway, the point of this was that David posted this with a question about what was happening with the RGB LEDs because of the issue of being about to assemble this board and wanting to know, ooh, siding, cute, and wanting to know what the outcome was with the RGB LED testing. Oh, Mitch. No. Mitch just said, and this is how John is going to track where boards are up to in his reflow line. Oh, don't make me do it. I would so do this. I would put a big status board up on the wall, tracking the real-time position of boards through the line. Oh, that would be so cool. Yes, and the thing is that this sort of project can be done with a screen. And in modern, when I say modern, I see...
Scott Miller said, squirrel.
Yeah. When... Hang on, I've got a cough again. My throat's not doing well today. Okay, I think I need to crack open this water bottle. Yeah. For showing the status of processes like this, putting up...
Lawler said, squirrel, squirrel, squirrel.
Yeah, that's right. You could just use a screen, like a big LCD, and display the same information. Or you could use a projector and project status of stuff on the wall. But for me, there is something satisfying about the physicality of this, the representation, using LEDs that move along to show the position of something. And I don't know why, because this sort of display project could be done with a Raspberry Pi and an LCD.
Outside the box said, yes, squirrel cube.
Yeah. Yeah. A Raspberry Pi and an LCD, and you could show this. You could have far more information. You could show data about each of the trains as it's moving along, and it's infinitely reconfigurable. It's just a software change, and then you can display different parts. You could zoom in and out, all sorts of things. Scott says, do it properly, old school. Optical sensors and incandescent lamps, yeah. But yeah, maybe it is the retroness of it. I really like this physical sort of representation. I kind of like maps in general, and I like maps of metro systems, of train networks and tram lines and those sorts of things. Yeah, there are some good ones. This is very cool. So, point is, David is about to assemble this board which has many LEDs. And, hang on, I'm just going to look back up. 100, yeah, so David said this, I haven't counted them. David said this board has 150 RGB LEDs on it. Oh, dodgy, yes. Christmas tree light at the drags, yeah. Yes. So, LEDs. Now, as you may recall, I have been having a problem with lack of reliability of RGB LEDs. They either fail during reflow or they seem to fail, I think they fail shortly afterwards. Oh, Amanda, hang on, we'll see if the text-to-speech picks this up. Oh, Scott says mechanical flags. Yeah. Michael says, a board like that will suck when you buy it and then a new station is built. Yes, that's right. But then it's an opportunity to sell a new one. Or a bit of rework. Some bodge wires. Glue some LEDs down and dead bug them. Not a problem. I don't know what's going on with text-to-speech, but it hasn't picked up Amanda's message, which was, I'm viewing in from my St. John ambulance volunteer duty in Kurri today. Excellent. I hope it's going well, Amanda, and your... how do I put this? I hope your day is boring. Isn't that the thing that someone who does ambulance duty hopes for? You don't necessarily... Yes. When your day is exciting and eventful, it means people are having a bad time. Donald, good morning, Florida. Henrik asked, is Amanda mod? That's a good question. Amanda is a member at the very least. Is Amanda a mod? No, I don't think Amanda is a mod. But who's limited to who can speak? I thought it was anyone could speak. Don't know. Everyone. Hi everyone, wagon loads. Stephen says the problem with dead bug LEDs is that the light is pointing in the wrong direction. Yeah, I'm not hearing anything from text to speech. Don't know why. All right. So, to recap, LEDs. We did many different experiments. I won't go through all the different scenarios, but what I've been seeing is a failure of approximately 25% on WS2813B RGB LEDs once they have been soldered to a board. And this even occurred when I would take LEDs off a reel, hold them in position on the PCB so they were making contact, run it so I would test that the LED was working correctly, then solder and then put it on the board and run it through reflow, and then it would fail after reflow. So there were LEDs that were known working coming off the reel, and then they would fail after reflow. 25%. So this is the shocking result. What I have done, in fact, let's what's the camera? Reolink, that's right, Reolink. This is, and I'm just going to use she who shall not be named. Oh, hang on. Oh, maybe I need to take some medication. All right. Where? Oh, it's almost hidden. Alexa, turn on the cleanish room.
Okay.
Boom! There goes the light. Now, what you can see the silver vent coming down here. I wonder if I can zoom in. No, I can't. The silver thing just behind there, you can see the edge of a dehydrator. And that is Mitch's food dehydrator. It's been sitting there on the bench for a couple of weeks now, and I've had a reel of LEDs sitting in that dehydrator for a week straight. And so they've been sitting at 70 degrees, and according to the sensor that I've got in there, hang on, what is it at right now? It is currently 9% humidity inside the dehumidifier. So they are as baked can be. Those LEDs have spent a week at 70 degrees, 9% humidity. And a couple of days ago, we ran a batch of boards. Remember that the Stephen W. Yeah, John needs 250 cc's of coffee. Yes. And out of each batch of 8 boards, there are particular boards that we make for a couple of clients where we typically assemble them in groups of 8 because of convenience in terms of how long they take to run in the machine, space on the bench, time taken to put on the solder paste, etc. So it's very common for us to do batches of 8 boards at a time.
Imogen Ann said, Jono will not be derailed today, rolling on the floor laughing.
It's catching up.
Amanda Thompson said, Hi John, I am viewing in from my St. John Ambulance volunteer duty in Curry Curry today.
Yes, text to speech is working.
Said, is speech awk? Scott Miller said, TTS is unreliable. Wagon Load said, wagon loads.
Okay, I think we're back. So out of each batch of 8 that we would do, very consistently 2 of the LEDs would fail. So 1 LED per board, 8 LEDs, 2 would fail, 25% failure rate. Occasionally 3 would fail, occasionally 1 would fail, but essentially it was 25% if you look at it over time. After those LEDs had been sitting in the dehydrator for a week, I did some boards. No, actually Tom did a batch of boards on Thursday, and of the 8 that he put on, 5 failed. 5 out of the 8. And this is when and this is when they had been in the they could not have been baked any drier. That's all right. No worries, Mitchell. Thanks. And they were as dry can be. They were as dry as the
Outside
Sahara
the box
at
said,
midday.
have you reached out to the supplier yet?
No. The supplier is... So I bought them from LCSC. The manufacturer
Jack's
is World
texted,
Semi.
was it the same placement on the board? Maybe it was hotspots on the board itself.
Yeah, same placement. It's the same boards that we have assembled many of. A significantly large number of boards of this exact same board in batches of 8 over the space of a couple of years. So with the LED in the same place, it hasn't moved in all that time. It wasn't always being done with that reflow oven. It was being, up until I got that oven, it was being done in the drawer style oven. So one of the other experiments to do is to do this in the other reflow oven, just to see what happens. Alistair, invert your strategy and soak them for a week. Okay, but this is where things get even stranger. Okay, so out of that
Michael
batch of 8...
Myers said TTS needs coffee too.
Yeah, it does. 5 of the 8 failed. So what typically happens is Tom will take the ones that have failed and he will remove the LEDs and then hand solder LEDs back on. So not using hot air, usually using a soldering iron, and then they are generally okay. Like the failure rate is low enough that if you lose 2 out of 8 and then you hand solder 2 replacements, those 2 will probably work. Although occasionally they will fail. And then I feel like I'm speaking in slow motion.
Henrik
Okay.
Ostrov said, have you seen these new LED strips link in Dickett? I wonder how they solder these.
No, I have not. I'm going to have to check that out. What am I saying? Yeah, 5 out of 8 failed on reflow. So he removed those 5 and put replacements on. 3 of those replacements failed. 3 out of 5, so 60% failure on the
Dickett
replacements.
Said, lol Dickett.
Yeah, it's a way to get around the... Yes. The profanity filter. So 3 out of the 5 replacements failed. And then 1 of those replacements I think failed. Then I had a board that was one that had been assembled some time ago and had been sitting on the shelf that had a failed LED. I removed that LED, put on a replacement failed. I put on 3. Every single one failed. 3 in a row. So, yeah. Out of, what was the number? I think it worked out that out of 18 LEDs that were put on, 12 of them failed. Some crazy number like that. I can't remember. But the point is, LEDs baked, sitting here in that.
Peter Lawler said, "Oops, almost forgot to dislike and unsubscribe again."
Yep.
Peter Lawler said, "Oops, almost forgot to dislike and unsubscribe again."
Ah, very cute as I say. Okay, so yeah, where does this leave us? Where it leaves me is I'm going to rip open my next bag of LEDs because I'm getting, how far is it down? It's probably 3/4 of the way through that reel, and I've got a whole new reel sitting unopened, still sealed in its original bag. Yeah, Mitchell says new supplier time. Yeah, this is the thing. It is, they are genuine World Semi LEDs. These are
Peter
not,
Lawler said, "Have I just found a bug?"
I don't know.
Peter Lawler said, say oops, almost forgot to dislike and unsubscribe again.
That's throwing me. For some reason, the distraction is worse today than normal. It's getting to my brain. Did you get any SML for the LEDs? What do you mean by SML? What's that abbreviation? Why is my brain failing at that? Surface mounting, MSL? I don't know. What does MSL stand for? MSL.
Peter Lawler said, say have I just found a bug?
Spec sheet.
Peter Lawler said, "This is great."
Oh, yes. Yes, we were looking at that. So Keith said spec sheet. That is what we were looking at a few weeks ago, which is why I ended up baking them. Because the datasheet, the World Semi datasheet says once you've removed them from their sealed bag, so once you break open the bag with the reel in it, you have to use it within 2 hours. And how many are LEDs on a reel? I think it's 2,000. So you've got to use 2,000 LEDs and run them through reflow in under 2 hours. I'm not going through that sort of number. I need a way to store them. And Scott says, have all of the failures been from that same reel? Recently, but the previous reel was also exhibiting these failures. When that was failing though, it was, I can't remember when I opened this reel. It's probably been 6 months. But I was getting some LED failures prior to opening this reel. It just wasn't at this crazy rate. And I think when I started with this reel, it was generally okay, and it seems to have degraded. So it's over time. Yeah, Stephen W says vacuum seal the reel again after using some. What I really should do is look for a vacuum seal bag, vacuum storage bags. I wonder if there is a little, now, vacuum pump. Yeah, maybe I need to get it myself a vacuum pump. Double lock. How big are these? They need to be, what, 250 by 250 millimeters? Something like that to fit a thing in. I just searched for vacuum seal bag. What are these? 60 by 40 centimeters. That's huge. That's bigger than I need to fit a reel in. But maybe I need to do something like get some of these.
Jack's Tech said, search for sous vide bags.
Oh, sous vide bags. Ooh, yes. Oh, what? Stupid UI. How do you... Sous vide? Sous vide bag. Oh, it's the same, pretty much. So what have we got here? Vacuum food sealer roll bags. I think that is if you have a machine that does the sealing. What sizes do we have available in this? Kit blue, kit grey, kit green. What's the difference? Is it just the colour or is it the size? Come on, provide some helpful information, please. Doesn't explain the price is different, dramatically different. Maybe this tells us what the sizes are. Oh, here we go. Maybe it's a pack. I don't know. They look pretty big though. Yeah, they make vacuum bags for. Yes, actually. 3D printer filament storage, that is what I should be doing. I should be, in fact, I need...
Said, they make vacuum bags for clothing. They are reusable.
What I should do is just get some... I've been thinking this anyway. I need some... I've been having problems with storage of printer filament recently as well. Dehydrator, but what I could do is solve both problems. Storage solutions is a lull spot thing. So if I got a dehydrator for storing filament in, yeah, so you can drop them in a filament what? Sturt?
Johnny Bergdahl said, you can drop them in a filament styro.
Filament, okay. Michael says, I've recently opened 2 mattresses in a box, if we're talking vacuum sealing. Oh, a dryer. A filament dryer. Yeah. Dryer box. There were some that I saw recently that were quite cool, where there was the dryer box. Oh, there were boxes that were fairly cheap that would plug into a base. So you could dry them one at a time and seal them and keep them sealed. Anyway, if anyone has recommendations for a filament drying and storage system, I would be very interested to hear about it. Yes, okay, so going back up in the comments a little bit, Henrik asked, how would you solder an 0402?
Room of rice?
Room of rice. Oh, I saw recently a video that rice is not actually that useful for dehydrating. So Henrik said, how would you solder an 0402 LED? Yeah, so the whole thing about if you drop your phone in water, put it in rice, doesn't actually work. Like, it doesn't work very well anyway. Rice as a moisture absorber is very, very poor.
Scott Miller said, rice is a lie.
Yeah, rice is a lie. There are other materials that work dramatically better. Even kitty litter works better than rice, because kitty litter is quite absorbent, but it's not as good as actual real moisture absorbing desiccant stuff. So Henrik said, how would you solder an 0402 LED? Depends if you want to reflow or if you want to do it by hand. If you're doing it by hand, I would just, well, pretty much everything I do is under a microscope these days because my eyes are bad. But yeah, I would just pick it up with tweezers.
Imogen Ann said, rice doesn't exist.
Put it down on
Peter
the pad.
Muller said, meow.
Solder one end with the soldering iron, turn it around, solder the other end. Simple as that. Vacuum, yeah, Stephen says vacuum seal the reel again after using some. Yes. Technebulous asks, can you vacuum seal them when not in use? Nathdev AU.
Jack's said, use solder tweezers.
Yeah, I don't like solder tweezers that much. I mean, they're good for removal. They're not good for installation because they solder both sides at the same time, which is great if you want to remove an LED. It's perfect for that. But if you If you want to solder it, what it means is that you have to hold the LED down with one hand, like say use a point on the top of the lens of the LED to hold it down while you use the tweezers to solder the sides. I think it's better to grasp the LED from the sides with tweezers and then use a soldering iron to solder one end of the LED. That fixes it in place, and then you can let go of it and then you can solder the other end. So solder tweezers have their place, but I wouldn't use them for installing an LED, only for removing it. So NathDev AU and Don S from NZ both had related comments, which was, if you have 2 hours to reflow, could you put in the dehydrator in that window? And Don said, try some from the new sealed bag within 2 hours to test the delivered quality. Right, yes. And this is one of the reasons that I have held off breaking open the new reel. I don't want to do it prematurely, because from the moment that I crack the seal on that bag, the clock is ticking. I have to be ready for it. So what I want to do is, I need to think through the plan a little more. But my general plan is, when I crack that bag open, I want to have boards ready to go with all of the parts on them except LEDs, so that what I can do is open the bag, pull a couple of LEDs off the end of the reel, put them, hand place them, so not in the machine, hand place them on the boards.
Fair enough, the pair we had in the uni lab had a set of cold tweezers inside the heated solder tweezers.
Oh, that's an interesting idea. Then, what was I saying? Yes, that's right. Hand place the LEDs, run them through reflow, and check the failure rate. I have a feeling that the failure rate will be approaching 0. Asymptotically approaching 0 from above, as they say. But then, this is the thing. What do I do then?
Ostrov said, if you open the Park 2 house is ticking, but why the time stops after reflow?
Why the time stops after reflow? That is just because I think the failure is occurring as a result of reflow. And in fact, what I should do is reflow some in the other oven and see what happens. It could be related to the reflow profile, perhaps, but I don't think so. They are not getting especially hot. I'm using leaded solder, and I've tuned the reflow oven for leaded solder, which melts at a lower temperature than unleaded solder. And these LEDs should be generally used on PCBs with leaded solder reflowed at a higher temperature. So it's not even as if I'm stressing them greatly. That it should be, the reflow process should be well within their spec. Yeah. Oh, Mitch says, I use color change silica gel beads. Yes, I should get some of that. Oh, Mitch says, that dehydrator creates dry air by heating it. I think it's the extended heat that's the problem. Get something that creates dry air without the heat. Yes. So what I could do is, if I had vacuum seal bags, I could...
Henrik Ostrov said, yay, the 2 hour time is kind of weird thing.
Yeah, okay, so I've got to think through the plan and I need to have all of this worked out in advance, because from the time I open that bag, I need to have a thought out process of what I'm going to do with them. Put some on a board, and then the reel itself needs to go back into a low moisture storage. So as Mitch pointed out, maybe the heat is a problem. So what I could do is put them into a vacuum seal bag with desiccant packs and keep it sealed that way. Alistair said, or maybe not use air at all, put them in a vacuum chamber for a couple of hours. Yes, vacuum potentially could do it. Wagon Loads
Wagon Loads said, read my last comment.
Yes, okay, so Wagonlow's last comment was, what if you run a dehumidifier in the reflow room to bring humidity down while the bag is open? Yeah, I've actually been doing that. Where is this? You can't quite see it. There is a big dehumidifier down, sitting on the floor down here. And that's been pulling about...
Jack's Tech said, there's an osmosis membrane-based solution that also works.
Ooh, interesting. Jack's Tech said there's a... oh, sorry. Scott said, if they're already moist, vacuum will also cause steam bubbles. Yes, that's true. So the ideal situation would be to reduce the pressure gradually over time, not make it sudden. Because then you have the exact same problem as, hang on. Yeah, because then we have the exact same problem as going through the reflow oven, which is that the rapid heating, or the heating over the space of 30 seconds to a minute, causes the water inside to expand, turn into steam and cause damage. That's still only a theory. We still don't know 100% for sure that's what's happening. And applying a vacuum quickly, or reducing the air pressure quickly, would be a more accurate way of putting it, would have the same effect. It would make the...
Peter Lawler said, Steve and Steph proof of leaf NAO.
Peter, I might make you wait. Yeah, so anyway, the point is, I have a big room dehydrator sitting in here, which has been pulling about 2.5 litres of water per day out of the air. But the humidity in the clean room has still been in the mid 40% region, somewhere in that region. And also it's not properly sealed. You can see this vertical black space here, this cavity, that is actually an open cavity going into a spot
Jack's Tech said, look up solid state dehumidifier elements.
Ooh,
Peter Lawler said, your face is a big room dehydrator.
Thanks, Peter. That's the nicest thing anyone has ever said to me.
Wagonload said, sounds like that a decompression chamber used to prevent divers from getting the bends.
Yeah, a dehumidifier. Yeah, a deco chamber element.
Henrik Ostroff said, can you put together an Ethernet Arduino humidity temp sensor combo as in one of your old videos? Where you used Watchdog as well.
Oh, I could. I don't need to though, because I've got sensors everywhere now. In fact, if you see, look up the top right here. You see up on the shelf, I don't know if you can see where my cursor is, there is a row of boxes. Each one of those boxes, I'm going to go and grab one. This is now how I'm storing my parts reels when they are not on a machine. Where is one? This one will do. Just grab one of these. Okay, and back to here. Okay, so these are fully watertight and possibly airtight containers. You can see there is a blue ring around it. There's a gasket, and it's got these big latches that clip down on all four sides. They're quite thick and strong. The idea is that this is meant to be watertight. And what is the rating on it? IP67. Yeah, air, dust, and waterproof. So it's an IP67 rated box. And what I did was got some core flute and laser cut spacers. So, in fact, I'll open it up. But if you look on the front, you can see there is, where's the camera? There. There's a temperature and humidity sensor. So it's showing 10% humidity inside the box. This box has big desiccant packs inside it. So and across there, that white thing that you can see, that's a Zigbee environmental sensor. So I've got 2 temperature and humidity sensors in here. This one, the round one that you can see, is just a local display, so I can just look at the box and see. This one is reporting back to MQTT, and then I'm plotting this on the screen on the wall, so I can see the environmental conditions inside the storage containers. And then I've got 5 storage containers. So this one is semiconductors, as you can see, and the I'm going to open this one up and show you. Pull the seal off. Inside, so I used core flute and I laser cut dividers. I'll pull this one right out. So transistors, they're like little placeholders. This is just a piece of core flute. Laser cut to that shape with a sticker on it, and it fits into the profile of the box. So I can open the box up and just, well, it's a bit hard to see because of the camera angle, but it's transistors, diodes, LEDs. In fact, here you can see vacuum sealed LEDs and desiccant packs all through it. So that is why the inside of this box, in fact, it's probably going to go up now. Over the next minute or so, we'll probably see that go up above 10% because it's just been exposed to the atmosphere. So that is how I've been storing all of my reels. Scott said, you mentioned desiccant in the bins. Are the parts in the bags exposed to the desiccant? Not if the bags are sealed, but the bags that are sealed have desiccant in them as well. Oh, CNC kitchen. Okay, let's see. CNC. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's the I think I did see that one. I might have watched that video. So that was Stefan's video. Let's see. So yeah. Yes. 2 trains of thought. I'm hanging on to 2 squirrels right now. Well, multiple squirrels. Okay, finishing up that thought. Scott asked, desiccant in the bins. So the bags that are inside those containers have desiccant packs in them as well. So the desiccant in the container, but that's not always the case. In some of these, for example, I've got 2 reels here of just resistors. So that one spares, that's resistors from 0 to 10k. The next one is resistors above 10k. And then I've got, that one is capacitors. The one that I just pulled out, where that hole is on the shelf now, the one that I've got in here, that's semiconductors. And some of the resistors in particular are just exposed reels. They're not even in bags. So they're reels that have been sitting around for a while. And those ones inside the tub are definitely exposed to the desiccant because they are just inside the container. There's no other thing. But many of the reels are inside bags that are then inside the container, and the container has desiccant as well. So it's like 2 layers of protection. Ooh. Chris said, I used to make some red-blue LED flashies for fireys. They did get condensation after hermetically sealing the light unit. More failures than when manually glued together. Huh. Right. Yeah, where was I? That's right. So Henrik was saying, could I put together an Ethernet Arduino humidity thing? So my point is, each one of these containers has inside it 2 temperature and humidity sensors. One for local display and one that is reporting to MQTT. and the room has as well. It's a bit hard to see, but over here on the left, there, you might just be able to make out a tiny little white thing stuck to the wall. That is another environmental sensor. So I'm measuring temperature and humidity in the room, and atmospheric pressure as well, but that's not so relevant to this. And that hole there needs to be sealed. This room, this whole room is not yet properly sealed. And I think that is something that needs to move up my priority list to be able to have a proper protected environment in here. So the dehumidifier that I've had running in here has been pulling 2.5 litres of water a day out of the air, and it has got the humidity in the room down into the somewhere in the mid 40% region, but it won't go any lower than that. And I need to get it, I probably need to aim to get it a bit lower. Not a lot lower, because I don't want to end up with a static electricity problem. And oh, Chris said, have you got graphs of production run versus humidity? No, that would be interesting. Yeah, store the environmental data against production run data. Yeah, what was the temperature and humidity at the time the board went through reflow? Jack's Tech said,
yeah, I can't really seal it with the fire reel there in the corner.
Ah, yes. So what you can't see, because it's dark, is right in the corner in that section. The reason this kicks out around is that there is a fire reel mounted on the wall. Now,
Scott Miller said, when you get nosebleeds while in the room, it's dry enough.
yeah, then it's dry. So I had a fire inspector come around. Now you can just make out there is a fire extinguisher sticker on the wall there, and there is a carbon dioxide fire extinguisher just down here, which was tested and certified and refilled just a few months ago. And when the fire inspector was here, I was talking to him about the hose reel, and it turns out it is not a legal requirement for me to have the hose reel functional in the room, which is really good news because it means I can just block this off. I was under the impression that there had to be a fire. Now, the big caveat here is I am not an expert on this stuff. I don't know what the regulations are. But what I thought was the case was that you had to have the hose reel so that it could reach all parts of the factory. So it had to be accessible. And the fire inspector said, no, you just have to have adequate fire suppression. And that doesn't have to be achieved by the reel on the wall. So if you provide adequate fire suppression via other means, this reel no longer needs to be accessible. And in fact, I could have it decommissioned, which he suggested might even be a good idea because it'll prevent the possibility of leaks. Because one of the dangers is the hose reel sits here, it's got water running down to it, so there's a pipe on the wall. There could end up being a leak at some point. Maybe we could end up with water coming in through there. So his advice was to provide adequate fire suppression equipment via other means and to have that hose reel decommissioned. So, vacuum material dryers from Maguire. Yes, to understand more about dryers. Yeah. So what that opens up is that is actually the reason I left this like this, because I've been puzzling over how to do this in a way that would keep the fire reel easily accessible. And I was thinking of just having a door that when it opened would be direct access to the fire reel. But I can enclose that if I need to. Henrik says, put a glass in front of it with a hammer. If someone ever needs it, they just can break the glass. Yeah. Yes, so I need to seal this off, and I need to seal off around the ceiling as well. Ironic. The roof of the clean room needs sealing all around. What is going on with my throat? Oh, Jack's Tech said.
Peter Lawler said, bit of water. That'll buff out.
And then Jack's Tech said.
Jack's Tech said, not a terrible idea. Install a shower screen.
Yeah, that is very lateral thinking and quite clever. Yes, a shower screen with like the magnetic strip along the edge so that when it closes it goes ka-chunk and seals or semi-seals. You could have a shower screen door there that forms a seal. That's quite clever. But no, I think what I'll do is I'll just put I do want to get access into this cavity, so I think what I'm going to do is put a door across there. But at least it means that I can not be so worried about issues of access to the fire reel. Henrik said, can you look at the Discord? I'm in Discord, yes. What should I be looking for? Bunch of boards for other lines. Is this it? Oh, yes. Train tracker. I've seen this. This is really cool. Hang on, I'm going to bring this up on the screen. Traintracker.co.uk. London Underground, large. UK and Ireland map tracker. Where are some more? Elizabeth Line. Metropolitan Line. Oh, this is the thing. This is it. Oh, I sent DM to you. Okay. Yeah, okay. So this looks remarkably like the photo from... Yeah, it's like it's a re-implementation. So it looks like David's design, that was the one I was just showing you before, the render, is like a re-implementation of this. But this looks like a single color. In fact, what this looks like is rear mount LEDs. Maybe? I don't know. Maybe rear mount LEDs? Oh no, they're top mount. They're LEDs just sitting on top of it. Yeah. Okay. It's got an ESP32 on it, but it's up in the top right corner. David's has got the ESP over here, and the connectors are in different places. And it's RGB LEDs. Same sort of idea though. Yeah. These are groovy. Circle Line. London Underground. Victoria Tube. District Line. New York City Subway. Haha, that's cool. I think there was, yeah, the, Boston MBTA. The Melbourne Underground would be very boring. It's just a circle, I think, a loop. It's not anything interesting like this. Oh, that looks so cool. I want one of these just for the coolness factor of it. Okay. What sort of display board can we build? What are we going to show? Come on, people. Give me a squirrel to chase. What am I going to make a display board for? Try Canberra. Alistair, what does the metro system in Canberra look like? Is there a metro system in Canberra? I don't know. Straight line 10 stops. Is Auckland Rail. Location of sausages on the barbecue. Melbourne Airport to Melbourne CBD train line board would be super easy to make, says Peter. Yes. I would like one blank PCB, please. Better make it 6 layer because it's going to be complicated to route. Such sadness. We should have a train line to the airport. Do we have an image from the thermal camera yet? Says Keith H. I really should talk about that, shouldn't I? And show you what came out of last Sunday's hacking session with Keith H. Because Keith H was here in person along with a bunch of other people, and we made some progress. So, what'll I do? I'm going to get out of this. I'll quit out of that. Oh yeah, so this is David's implementation of the Metropolitan line. Yeah.
Peter Lawler said, Melbourne Airport to Melbourne CBD train line board would be super easy to make.
Yes.
Henrik Ostrov said, make a display board about where is John location in the lab.
Yeah, we could do that. Wouldn't be very interesting though. I think what it should be is real-time. I want real-time information about something that is, how do I put this? Not here and physically across a big area. Something like a subway system is good, but I don't know what. And it has to be constrained because it has to be on lines. Yes. Michael said, this is in relation to the train line to the airport. Michael said, we have a plan for a train line, just that we also have bureaucrats who like arguing about the plan for a train line. Yeah, just build the thing. Just build it. Scott says, say, look at my last two messages. All right, where are Scott's messages? Color change based on their activity. Scott, world map with member locations light up if they're in the chat. Color change based on their activity. Ooh. Now the difficulty with that though is doing, where do you put the LEDs? You'd essentially have to put LEDs on all of the surface. I was just thinking, do you put them in the ocean as well in case people are on boats at the time? Yeah, Wagon Light, it's real-time info on where the PCB is on the assembly line. Stephen George said, or Belgrave train line, there is a PTV API to call for train ETAs.
ISS tracker.
Yeah, ISS tracker is cool.
Look at my last two messages.
Yep.
Henrik Ostrov said, where is John Backaches in the world?
Discuss the percent over budget later. Stevens, weather map, radar map of Melbourne is a good one. Oh, that would be a good one. The problem is though that it would just be like a solid matrix of LEDs.
Mitchell R said, we know it's going to go over budget, so just start already. You can discuss the percent over budget later, lol. Yeah.
The thing is that with what it needs to be constrained. What makes these interesting?
Steve and Steph tracker, obviously.
Oh, yeah, but they never move. They sit on the shelf right next to me. What makes these interesting is that there are dedicated LEDs for different locations. If you're doing something like a weather map, it's just a matrix. So essentially what you would do is you would go out and just buy an off-the-shelf RGB matrix, and then you would map stuff onto it in software. But the cool part of this is the physical layout of the LEDs following.
Jack's Tech said, Melbourne's tram network.
Yeah, Melbourne tram network. That could be cool. All right. Thermal camera.
Peter Lawler said, you say they never move, but you don't know what they're up to when you leave the shop.
Oh, that's true. They could be getting into all sorts of mischief when I'm not here. Thermal camera. Now, last week at the barbecue, after I'd been messing around with the thermal camera, and I was not in the mood last week to be messing around with Python and its package management.
Said, where the tracker is located relative to the squirrels.
So yes, I apologize if my attitude came across as very short last week. I just couldn't be bothered dealing with Python's package management bullshit. Yeah, but then afterwards, there was the barbecue, and then after people had been eating and talking for a couple of hours, a bunch of people ended up gathering right here around my desk, and someone, this is the thing that sparked it all off. Someone made the comment, I think it might have been Stephen, made the comment, I assume that John has Googled for whether someone has done this already. And I said, never assume that I have done the logical thing, which then resulted in me Googling for stuff and finding some things, and then we okay, what did we do? We chucked the camera onto a USB to serial converter, and I was pulling data off it onto my computer, just into a serial terminal. And we were trying, but the thing is that I didn't know what the baud rate was. So we were trying different baud rates. We were just getting lots and lots of hex values. They didn't seem to be making a whole lot of sense. And so what we did was put the oscilloscope on it, and we could see the frames of data on the oscilloscope. And we were looking at the length of the bits and trying to figure out from
Mitchell
that.
R said, the weather map you can design with the icons, like you do for neon numbers, blanked on name. Scott Miller said,
Maybe.
Python is specifically designed to cause frustration.
Only for me, because I'm dumb. We were looking at it on the scope, and we were trying to figure out how fast, what is the baud rate of the messages. And we could see a complete frame of messages. It seemed to be making sense that it was around 17 or 1800 bytes is what it looked like, which is what we would expect to see. And we could see the individual bits, we could see the bytes within it, and we were messing around doing calculations with what is the time, like the duration of a bit, and we ended up doing a calculation that came out to be off by a factor of 2. I think it was, the calculation was that it was going to be 5700 bits a second, and it was actually 115,200. So then we found, where are we, projects? I'm going to open this up. Testomatic. So yeah, with the help of a bunch of people last week, we made more rapid progress than I was ever going to make on my own. Here we go. Is this the document? This is one of the things that I found once I once I started searching. So this is the user manual for the same camera module as I have. Now, I didn't get this from the seller. This is coming out of, this is actually in a GitHub repo.
Mitchell R said, no, I hate Python as well. It's a pitter.
This was in...
Miller said, Pythons eat squirrels. Python is evil.
Random GitHub repo of someone who had been trying to decode the protocol as well. So this is the original thing, and you can see that it says that it supports 9600, 115,200 and 460,800 bits per second, but it doesn't, I don't think it says what the default is, and it says response frequency 8 Hertz. So that means you can get up to 8 frames per second out of it if you were running serial comms at 460,000 bits a second. But it doesn't run 460,000 bits a second by default. Oh, and range is minus 400 to plus 300 at 0.1 degree resolution. Accuracy 2%, repeatability, yeah, there's a whole thing that, a discussion that we got into about do you round numbers. Anyway, power, serial, SCL, blah, blah, blah. Okay, here we go. Default baud rate, 115,200 bits per second, but can be set by software. So you can send it a command and have it change its baud rate. But by default, it's 115,200. Oh, and you can see here, each frame contains 1,544 bytes. And look at this. Here is a description of what the bytes mean. This is gold. So the meaning of the byte representation. So then there's a description here, and you can see the the orientation. And interestingly, it is top right corner is the origin. And you can see that unlike what I would expect the image to be, which is top left is 0, 0, it's actually top right is 0, 0. So you can see that's column 1, column 2, column 3. It counts from right to left. And the rows are top to bottom, so row 1, row 2, row 3, down to row 24. Each one of these little squares that you can see is one of the pixels, and each one of those has its own heat value that is being returned in the data frame. And we're going to see that in just a second. Interesting other information. It says it is 100 times its own temperature. Oh no, that's byte 1541. Ignore that for now. Which is 100 times the actual temperature. So, for example, if it's reading 26.28 degrees, it'll send a value of 2,628. So what you do is you take the value, because it's just an integer. And so what you do is you take the value and divide it by 100, and that gives you the temperature of that particular pixel. So, amount of data. Yeah, when you look at this, it actually makes a whole lot of sense. So what we can see here is that we need two hex values of 5A in a row designates that this is the start of a frame. And then some of the terminology is a bit strange here because this is a translation from, this is a Chinese, is it Chinese? No, I don't know. No, Melexis is a German company. Not sure. Anyway, I think there are some translation issues here anyway, slight translation issues, because it says low data volume 8 digits, high data volume 8 digits. Volume is not the word that I would use in this scenario. What this is actually telling us is the number of bytes in the payload. So this is payload length. It is 2 bytes that tell us, so hex 0206, and because they always send the low byte first, this is actually, in fact, let's look at this. Hex to decimal converter. Because I'm lazy, I always do it this way. All right, let's bring this up on screen where that can be seen at the same time as this. About there somewhere. All right. So what we can see is it's telling us
37 minutes.
That the length of the data that it is going to send, that is the high byte and this is the low byte. So it's hex 0602. So hex 0602 convert to decimal gives us, ta-da, 1,538, which is the number of bytes. And if you, okay, here is the thing. If you take that and you say divide by 2, that gives you 769. Now, what is the significance of 769? It is 1 byte more than 768, which is 24 times 32. So if we go 24 rows by 32 columns, that'll give us 768. So there are 768 pixels of 2 bytes each So that gives us by 2 equals 1,536. So we have 1,536 bytes of data to represent that image or that frame of information. Plus 2, because the actual length of the data is 1,538. We've got 2 extra bytes above the 1536. And that is because those 2 extra bytes are used for this information here. Now, this bytes 1540 and 1541, these are not part of the target temperature. So we've got the array of values which are the image that we're looking at essentially. Those are all the values. There are 768 of those, and then there is one extra temperature value, once again consisting of these 2 bytes, so bytes 1540 and 1541, and that is the temperature of the sensor itself. It's like, that's its internal reference temperature. And what you could do is, I think it says it somewhere here in this data sheet, you can take, so what we're actually getting is 769 temperature values. 768 of those are the image, and the final one is the temperature of the sensor, its internal temperature, followed by a couple of checksum bytes, which are not included in the payload length. So we've got frame header, we've got a frame header, then we've got a number that tells us how long the data is, then we've got the data, including the extra byte on the end, the extra temperature value on the end rather, 2 bytes, then we've got the checksum. So this information is gold. This is what tells us everything we need to know to figure out how to read this data. All right, data magnification, yeah, that's just because of the offset by a factor of 100. So yeah, examples of how to do the conversion and how to read the 2 bytes. So the second byte is the most significant byte, so you multiply that by 256 to get its value. You add it to the first byte, which is the least significant byte, and then you divide it by 100, and that gives you a temperature. So that's actually pretty straightforward once you understand what's going on. First 771 words, cumulative sum, that's checksum stuff. Baud rate setting, so these are commands we can send. So if, for example, we wanted to change the baud rate to 460,800 bits per second, we could send this command, A51503BD, and that would change it. And we can change the frame rate as well. So we could explicitly request a low frame rate if we wanted to, just so that it's not sending as much data if we don't care about that. So if we wanted 1 frame every 2 seconds, we could set it to 0.5 Hertz by sending that command to it. Automatic query and set up query output data command. Yeah, so we can either set it into a mode where it just spits out regularly, or set it into a mode where we have to request a frame and then we get a frame back. So this is the query output data command, and so if we send that message, it'll go into a mode where it'll stop spitting out data. If we send this, it'll just keep pumping out data as fast as its settings tell it to. Emissivity command, we can query the emissivity value, we can set the emissivity value, and then we can save into non-volatile memory. And also you can do other stuff when you've got I2C mode. So all of this information, this PDF is exactly what I needed to break open the mystery. It saves all of the reverse engineering work, all of the trying to figure stuff out. What else is there? That is, yeah, that's what's in that manual. Other stuff. All right, so notes, process data, camera annotated. Okay, here we go. Here we go. So what happened was, hang on, I'm going to open a different thing first to show you this. All right, so what happened was we ended up with this. You can't see it yet, but you will very soon. I promise. All right. What we ended up with coming out of the serial console was something that looked like this. A big chunk of binary data. Oops. Just a whole lot of hex values. And when you look at this, you think, what is going on here? There is no... When I was first looking at this, my first thought was, if this is sending it as ASCII values, then somewhere in here, if I grab an ASCII table and look up these values, somewhere there is something that probably corresponds to something like a new line character, because that would be the signifier of the end of a frame. But it turns out it's not using that sort of encoding. And so that I was going down a dead end. Now, I'm pretty sure it was Stephen who pointed this out. I wonder if I can zoom in a bit more here. Yes, I can. All right. He was just glancing at this and he said, 08, that's repeating a lot. Look at this. If I select it.
Mitchell R. said, but reverse engineering is fun and time consuming. Why wouldn't you want to do it, lol?
Yeah. Well, there's still enough fun and time consuming stuff to do. Don't worry. Plenty of time consuming stuff to do. Now, you can see here, 08 is appearing all over the place. Now, on the stream last week, I can't remember who, someone had the very cool suggestion, of pointing the camera at a cold surface or at a consistent surface so that the data would be blanked out. Essentially, it would be all consistent, like a 0 value, and that way we could find where the frame headers are. They should stand out, because if we've got a sea of data and most of the data is 0, you should see the chunks where it's got like the frame header and the end of the frame, and make it easier to find. That was a very, very clever suggestion. I like that one a lot. And it kind of ties into what's going on here, where Stephen remarked 08 is repeating a lot. And look, we can see there are pairs, 1508, 1308, FD07, which is not much of a deviation from it. Back here we've got 0D08, 1908. And his comment was that if this data was captured while the camera was looking at a fairly even surface, the values won't be deviating very much. So in this case, the 08 is probably the most significant part of the value, and they're 2-byte values, which is accurate. And now what we can do is, if we come back to here, and we look at our frame header, look at this. We've got a frame header of 5A, 5A. So here, we've got a game of Where's Wally? Where is the 5A, 5A in this? So I'm going to cheat and just do where is 5A, 5A. Look, there's a 5A, 5A. That is the start of a frame. And is there another one? Okay, back up here. Here's a 5A, 5A. We have the start of a frame right here, possibly. And then what have we got after that? We've got a 0206. Can I zoom in any more? I'm going to zoom way in, even though it breaks the line wrapping. All right, we've got 5A, 5A. That is the start of a frame, according to our header here. And what's following after it? 0206. Okay, look at this. 0206. Low data volume 8 bits, high data volume 8 digits, high volume 8 digits. 0206. And if we do the hexadecimal conversion, 0602 is this. 0602 in hex is 1538. We've got ourselves a frame, people. Look at this. Whoops, not that one. Come back to Sublime Text. This is the start of a data frame that complies with the spec according to that data sheet. And look at this, the next pair of bytes, 2D08. Okay, so this is the first pixel in the data frame, 2D08. But remember, the bytes are backwards. So 08 is the most significant byte, 2D is the least significant byte. So it's 08 2D. I don't know why they send them in that order, but they do. So 08 2D is...
Mitchell R said, maths is working.
Yeah, maths is working. So 08 2D is the value in hex of the first pixel coming out of the camera. Convert, it is 2093. And remember, everything is multiplied by 100 because there is no decimal point representation. In here it's, wherever it is, set it down here. Temperature, which is 100 times the actual temperature. What does that mean? 20.93 degrees, people. We have data. And then we go on to the next one. Next frame is 081E. So 081E, do a conversion on that. And that one is 20.78 degrees. So what you're looking at here in Sublime Text, this is the hex values captured out of the serial terminal last Sunday. This was at the barbecue when people were helping me mess around with this. And this is the raw data. Basically what I did was open CoolTerm and set it to 115,200 bits per second, and it was getting all of this data coming in. All I did was copy, I go into the console, copy a chunk of it, paste it into the text editor so that I could mess around with it, and that's what this is. And now I present to you, not that exciting really, this. So this is CoolTerm once again, and this is the my annotated version. So what I did was I started with this. I just...
Mitchell R said, okay, too much maths for a Sunday now. Show us the output, haha.
Yeah. So...
Scott Miller said, pretty simple to generate an image from it now.
It is pretty simple, yes. I haven't actually done that yet, but that is the next step. So so what I did was I copied a chunk of this, and then I went, oh, that's the start of a frame. I'm just going to delete everything before it, and I'm going to find the next zero, where is it? 5. This is the start of the next frame. Copy that, delete it, everything after it, and now we have exactly one frame worth of data. That was... I'm going to close that without saving it. And that's what it gave us, this, and then I started writing notes. So rows are counted top to bottom, columns are counted right to left. Yeah, I just started adding some notes at the top, made notes about the serial settings, and then I took the data and I basically just, every couple of bytes, I just did this and turned it into pairs of bytes. The first two is packet start, and then that's the payload length. Oh no, that's actually wrong. I have now learned that this is not including checksum, including sensor temperature. And that is, yeah, it is payload length including sensor temperature. It's not including the checksum. So then 2D08, 20.93. 1E08, 20.78. These are the values that we were just calculating a second ago, because this is the same frame as I was doing the thing on. So this...
Mitchell R said, you have 20 minutes to generate a live feed. Let's go, oh.
So then the very last one, so this is A1dB. A1dB convert is 41,435. I'm going to write that in there. 41,435. That is the checksum that was calculated. 4143. Yeah. The second last one is the. Actually, I'm going to add a last sensor data. Row 24, column 32. And then 26.48 is the internal sensor temperature, which I don't believe was actually the temperature of the room. It wasn't that warm last Sunday, but the sensor itself must have some internal heating that goes on. So anyway, that is its internal temperature. And then the checksum that was calculated based on all of that data. So if we take each of these pairs of bytes, it is now very easy to convert each pair of bytes into a temperature value. And because we can count, this is row 1, col 1, this will be row 1, col 2. I think that's the order that it does it in. Then, Jordan says, yeah, all I see is bits. Yep. So, a couple of, all right, we now have.
Jordan Reese said, while we're on the topic, can you push updates to the Testomatic repo?
Yes.
I want to propose it to my boss for making international board tester.
Yes, actually something I want to do
Mitchell
this
R.
afternoon.
Said, all I see is bits grin da dum tis.
Yeah. I want to add a whole bunch of updates and things to that repo. Yeah. I was thinking about what I'm doing this afternoon. Jordan, yes, I will get on that. And oh, there is a checksum. Yeah, so there's a checksum down the bottom. So Michael said 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, etc. equals ice, ice, baby. Yeah. But shouldn't it be -4? It should be -4, -4, -4 is ice, ice, baby.
Peter Lawler said, I need a nap.
Yeah, no, I think it is about 0. There is a transition point. What is it that water doesn't, it go, or is -4 the temperature of, I don't know. Anyway, I don't know. Squirrel chasing. So we now have data. We have enough information to be able to convert this into an image. And what I could do is, and from this we can determine the highest temperature that is visible in the frame. We can determine the lowest temperature that is visible in the frame, because what we do is just decode each of the bytes. We know a temperature, and then we can bump up and down the thresholds as we compare to whatever the current highest and lowest values are. And yeah, or just do a sort, like an array sort or something, or a list sort. Starts at top right. Yes, it does. So row 1, column 1. Column 1 is top right. Columns are counted right to left when looking from the point of view of the sensor, because they're counted left to right when looking at the face of the sensor. So the image will be mirrored if you treat 0, 0 as a top left corner. Yes, that is right. Oh, Mitchell has something to say as well. Ah, some call it fun. Asked a very, very good question. Are those signed values allowing for minus? No, they are not. And one of the things that's going to be very interesting to see is...
Scott Miller said, depends on atmospheric pressure. Peter Lawler said, John's face is latent heat. Wagon Load said, starts at top right.
My face is latent
Mitchell R
heat.
said, you know what temps certain components should be, so you can also see premature failure of components that are getting hotter than they would normally be under loads.
Yes.
Mitchell R said, 15 minutes. Come on, let's render.
No, I'm not going to be able to render. So this was messing around. That number is wrong. That was totally from memory. This was messing around a couple of evenings ago, just playing with different little chunks of code. So this doesn't actually do anything right now.
Scott Miller said, TTS is getting worse.
It's quite laggy. And that's wrong. This was me just... I wasn't at work. I was at home, sitting there with my laptop, just doing stuff from memory and messing around with some little snippets of code to start building up something that will be able to process this data. So processing the buffer was... and also, please don't laugh at my Python. Is a phrase I never thought I would say. No. People laugh at my Python all the time. So the process buffer, what am I saying? Increment the frame count. So I'm not doing this in a very Python-y way, but what have we got? Buffer count.
Ask ChatGPT.
That's actually
Mitchell R said, H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A-H-A.
Asking ChatGPT is actually a good idea.
Your Python is bigger than my Python.
Then
Mitchell R said,
buffer.
Only an Aussie could say that lol.
Yeah. Buffer byte count. What was I thinking the other night when I was doing this? Received, calculate, checksum, nothing. Yeah, so what I did was I started off just writing comments, which is how I typically start this sort of process. I won't write any code at all. I will just write comments, and the comment will be things like, it just shows the sequence of what needs to be done. Calculate checksum, then show checksum calculated and checksum received. There is no, like right in here is where all the checksum calculation stuff needs to go. So I start with a list of the things that the code is going to do, and then I progressively replace them with the actual code. So calculate checksum will be replaced by a thing that calculates the checksum. Should we pop first few bytes off the buffer to get to the start of the raw data? Don't know. Probably. Then for this byte in frame buffer, print buffer byte, this byte count received, bytes in frame. Yeah, anyway, so this was just messing around with how to do this. Now, one thing I should probably do is looking into using NumPy for this, because we are dealing with an array. The data is an XY array of values, and if I use NumPy,
Peter Lawler said, "Writing code is for noobs."
Yeah, writing code is for ChatGPT. So my plan is that first I'm going to need to hook up. What I was going to do was for initial testing be able to do this without even having the camera attached, because what I have is a frame of data. I can have a chunk of data like this just sitting in a text file on disk, including a complete frame. I can have a frame with leading and trailing stuff, etc. And then by pushing that into here, just reading the text file off disk and then running it through the processor, I should be able to get all of the code working without even needing a connection to a camera. And then what I can do is replace this code, so the code that opens the text file, I can replace that with code that opens the serial port instead and just processes it on demand, like in real time as the data arrives. But for development purposes, just pumping it in off a text file is a good way to do it. And so what would go in here would be like a file open, read bytes at a time. I mean, I'm not writing real code here, obviously. Read bytes at a time. For each byte, send it to receive byte. And then down here, we've got the receive byte function. So it gets a byte, and we need to be able to detect whether
Mitchell
we have...
said, by the way, Claude AI is much better with code than ChatGPT.
Oh, okay.
Been playing with it, and if you guide it right, yo, I feel lazy.
Claude.ai. Alrighty. Do your best work with Claude. Continue with Google. Okay. Okay. Sorry, I am just signing into Claude while... There we go. Okay. I am going to check that out after the stream. So what I'm going to do is, I need to receive the data and then I need to pass it off for handling. So my logic here, just to explain what is going on with this code. A byte comes in. A byte flies in off the wire. And what we say is, if the byte that we have just received is hex 05, because the thing is that 05 can appear anywhere in a frame, because it could be part of a valid temperature value, which means that you can't just use 05 as indicating that we're starting a frame. We have to detect a pair of 05. So we've got to track the last byte that we received and the current byte. And if the current byte is 05 and the last byte is 05, then it means that we're starting a new frame. So clear the frame buffer. So we've got this list called frame buffer, and we reset the byte count back to 0. If we are not starting a new frame, it means that the data that we have received is probably part of a current frame, and we append the byte that we've just received, and we store this as the last byte so that we can catch it on the next go around. We have a value set for last byte, and we increment the byte count. So if byte count is greater than frame length, then we process the buffer. So this is where frame length needs to be set up here as, what was it? It was 1536, 1538, because it was 768 plus 2. 768 times 2 plus 2 is 1538, I think. Someone with a calculator check my work, please, because I do not trust myself. So basically that's just the logic. This is simply an accumulator. What it is doing is looking for the marker, which is the start of the frame. Once it has begun a frame, it accumulates bytes into the buffer, and then once we get to the end of the buffer, we send it off. We call the process buffer method, or just function in this case. So then it calls the process buffer function, and which increments the frame count because we're processing a new frame. It tells us what frame we're processing, and then we have a count of a position within the frame. So we loop through the frame buffer, and print it. And this is all. So at the moment, this is not doing anything useful, except showing us what it's received. It's going to print out which byte it is, like the position, and then the actual byte that has come in. So we'll just get a big list of bytes coming out of this and increment it. And then once we've finished processing it, we say how many bytes we received. There's no calculate checksum in there. Clears the frame buffer, clears the byte count, and then exits. So then we received more data, which keeps being accumulated and then sent on. So anyway, that is just me messing around with some little snippets of code, not actually functional right now, obviously, to be able to deal with the array of data. Well, it's a serialized matrix, I think is technically the way to talk about it. Ooh, interesting. Some call it fun. Says, fun fact, 5A, 5A is alternating bits 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0, 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1.
5 minutes.
Would be 231.
Said, I thought start of frame was 0 by 5A, 0 by 5A.
Yeah, I think you're right. It is 5A. 5A. Yeah. 5A. There we go. Yes, I was doing this entirely from memory during the week, so I couldn't remember the length of the frame, and I knew it was something 5. I thought it was just 0505, obviously. Yeah, I was working on this code just sitting there with my laptop and trying to remember. All right. Now, Bomb Diggity said, for 2-byte integers, the usual method for negative numbers is MSB equals FF, so minus 20 might be FFE0. Bomb Diggity, thank you for that comment. I'm going to add this into my notes. Where up here? How are negative temperatures handled? Bomb Diggity. How do I say that? Diggity says dunk. That 2-byte integers. Yeah. All right. That's a little clue to myself next time. Yeah, I was thinking it might be a wraparound. For example, where are we? Where's the data sheet now? Here. Somewhere in here it said... See below for details.
Scott Miller said, better actually go look at the doc. Peter Lawler said, docs are for noobs.
Yeah, well, it says range is up to about 300 degrees. So being able to represent more than 300, there's no point anyway. So it's minus 40 to 300. It's going to be interesting to try pointing this at a negative temperature thing and see what values come back. Point it at something in the freezer. I need some ice cream. Anyway, not there. Now, this is not that. Where did the other thing go? Oh, I moved it off here. Yeah. So all of this is just about processing the incoming data and getting it into some kind of a frame buffer. So what would actually, this is obviously useless in terms of displaying an image. What this is doing is just stepping through the frame buffer values and then printing them so that we can see them as basic hex values in the console. But this is still viewing the matrix as green numbers falling down the screen. It's not viewing it as video. And right in here, right there, before clearing the frame buffer and bailing, we would then need to do something like convert this into an image. And someone at the barbecue, there are a couple of people who were talking about using a PGM image format, which is a portable grey, portable grey map. Here we go. PGM, it stores grayscale 2D images. Each pixel within the image contains only 1 or 2 bytes of information, 8 or 16 bits. And this is basic, it's pretty much perfect for this. And it's a very simple format from what I can see. So, portable grey map. So here is an example. P2, feep.pgm, 24, 7, 15, and then a whole bunch of data. There is new line character at the end of each of these lines. And so we should be able to generate a PGM image file trivially, like so easy to generate this.
Peter Lawler said, Napa clock.
Napa clock? Yeah, we should be able to generate a PGM file absolutely trivially out of this code right here. Like as stepping, so what we would do is dump out the header of the PGM file in here. So right here we could output PGM header, and then as we're going through here, we can be keeping track of what we would need is a counter for rows and columns, so we know the position, and we know when we've got to the end of a row, and then generate a new line. So we would be you get to the end of a row, do a new line, but so we would do if should I do this? No, I'm not going to. Buffer byte count, frame, yeah, no. So what we would do is we would have a counter which counts what column we're at, and once we get to the 30-second column, and the way to check so once we get to the 30-second column, we output a new line and then go back and start the next row. And that will give us this, which is a grayscale image, and that image will represent the temperature output from it. So yeah, I think this is probably a good first step. I want to do this as a color image and apply like the classic, what do they call it? I can't remember. But the classic thing where red is hot and black or blue is cold sort of thing. So that when you look at the image, you can feel where the heat is. It's a little bit more obvious than with a grayscale image like this. But this is a first step. If I can generate a PGM image, it means that we will have a grayscale image coming out of the thermal camera, and the brightness of the different parts of the image will represent the temperature at that location. Yes, it's I can see the letters. Well, there are, Don said I can see the letters EP in that data. There are more letters than that. Don, keep looking. There are actually 4 letters in that, and the file name is a giveaway. Or the like the comment at the top. So yes, Crispian got it. Alistair says import matplotlib.pyplotters blah mpr random shot in near show. Okay. Where are we? I'm going to go back to the other one because I'm keeping notes in here. Alistair, which is that. NP random 1616 plot ohm show CM hot interpolation nearest plot show. Okay, so that should generate, if I interpret this correctly, what this should be generating, matplotlib, import numpy as npa, plt.image show acmap hot, interpolation nearest. So that should be generating, what, a 16 by 16 matrix? Some Call It Fun says, you may find it helpful to right shift your 16-bit values 4 or 5 places and work with 8 bits to increase the contrast. Just experiment with it. Oh. Okay. Yes. You're right. Some Call It Fun. So what Some Call It Fun is talking about there is kind of gain control. And what I think is probably going to be necessary is something like either some kind, I've been debating this. You can, if you have automatic gain control, so AGC. All right, so what I'm talking about is when you're looking at an image, a thermal image in particular, typically what you'll see is the hottest parts of the image will be represented as red. And that is because it is scaling the range based on what is the hottest point in the image. And it will show the hottest point in the image as red. But the hottest point in the image may not be very hot. It might be like 5 degrees above room temperature. So it can be misleading. You can look at it and say, oh, there's a hot spot on the PCB there because it's showing it as red. But no, it's like 27 degrees in a 22 degree room. It's just that the automatic gain control has scaled the values so that the hottest point in the image is showing as hot. So I think what's going to be useful for me is fixed gain control. I'm going to have to come up with some kind of a scaling method where anything above, it might be, for example, that 70 degrees, like some value like that, is red, like is a certain point on the spectrum. And that way, if the whole board looks blue, you know that the whole board is cool. There might be parts of it that are slightly hotter than others, but they're not actually into a high temperature region where it's going to be a problem. Missing line breaks are hurting my brain, says Scott Miller. Oh, in this, yeah, that's because I just copied and pasted this from the YouTube comment where where it doesn't have them. Fixed gain with a known curve. Yes, says Jax Tech. Flag everything above 40C, says Don S. Yeah, I don't know what the actual sweet spot is yet. That's but yes, you're right. Anything on a board that is running hotter than 40C, and what it should be is actually based on temperature above ambient. So it depends on the environmental conditions in which you're testing it. Anything where it's beyond a certain temperature gain over ambient should be flagged. Oh, Keith H said, bacon and egg sandwich for lunch? Better be off then. Oh. Okay, I had breakfast this morning. This is kind of unusual, but it was a self-care thing. That's my excuse. I went to a cafe this morning and got eggs Benedict and a coffee for breakfast, like at a proper cafe, like a real person with a life and disposable income. And it was so good. I went to a little bakery that's local to here, just in the basin, and yeah, the eggs and coffee was so good with lots of bacon. Scale based upon the sensor temperature, i.e. last bite, says Jax Tech. Yeah, so using that as the, and Scott says subtract ambient from the data, then work with it. Right. So there, yes, the environmental temperature can be obtained in several ways. Will respect semicolon as statement breaks. Oh, interesting. Some Call It Fun says, I just learned Python will respect semicolon as statement breaks. Cool, because it breaks my mind writing code without semicolons. I because I almost never write Python, like I'm pretty much always in C++, this breaks me. Like looking at this, I just can't. I just can't. Like I'm. Oh, where are we? No. Yeah, I'm. Yeah. I don't know why, but for some reason, I think it's just conditioning. Is it, what is it, Stockholm syndrome or something? It's just reflex. When I get to the end of a line, I do semicolon enter. And just hitting enter, it feels naked. It's like, this thing doesn't have its clothes on because it doesn't have a semicolon at the end. Put some clothes on, frame count. Stop hanging out there like that without a semicolon. We can see everything. Jax Tech said, wait till you see YAML or XML. Yeah. Oh, Scott said, is text-to-speech going to deal with it? Maybe. Maybe. What am I doing? Yeah, that doesn't work. File open, and that's all fake. Now, funny thing is that if I Python this, oh, not right now. If I Python all of this, it doesn't have an error.
Said, don't take any information about Python as valid until tested on the exact version you're running.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, if I Python this, it doesn't give an error. It doesn't mean it does nothing, but at least I've eliminated syntax errors. That's a start. Is Python a verb? It is now. I'm going to verb that noun real good. Verb it. Verb it hard. Oh, Stephen says, I have a barbecue chicken wrap for lunch. Nice. Can you use a Peltier in frame as a temperature ref and adjust its temperature? Yeah. Won't know. Jacksec said this is in relation to what temperature should be flagged. You won't know until you have good and bad samples. Yeah. So I'm still some way away from using the real data from this. This is a side quest. This is totally a side quest from the Testomatic. Testomatic doesn't need this. This is just something that I thought would be fun to play with. It was at some point I was building it and thinking, I want to take a photo of the board. So I should put a web camera up and have the test framework take a photo of each board. And then I thought, why don't I add a thermal camera and take a thermal photo? That would be really, really neat and impressive. So when clients see the test report on their boards, it's got a thermal image of the board. I never actually got to the point of thinking, how am I going to use this data? Am I going to use it as part of the test process to reject boards by detecting out of temperature values? And yes, that would make sense. That's what you would use it for. But whether it is useful, what values are useful, and it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, that is a problem for future me. So for now, all I'm trying to do is capture a thermal frame. And then later I can figure out if it's useful or what to do with it and what metrics to use the frame, the data from that frame to pass or reject a board that's being tested. Log this data point. Yeah. Filter the highest data point in the frame, log this data point. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's lots of information that we can extract. Once we have a frame, like once we actually have a frame buffer full of data values that have come from the thermal camera. There are all sorts of fun things we can do with it. Oh, hidden heat map Easter eggs. Some call it fun. That is genius and nefarious, and I think it is very funny. So some call it fun says, now you need to lay out your board with hidden heat map Easter eggs. Yes. So some of you might have seen that people have used PCBs as heaters by putting traces, like putting a wavy trace or a spiral trace or something on a circuit board and then running power through it, and it warms up the board. So you can make heaters out of PCB material. What you could do is have an inner trace, like on one of the internal layers, preferably layer 2, so it's just under the top layer, and you could like write text in the track. You need to do like cursive text.
Can your video cam detect working LEDs?
Ah, working LEDs. Now that is a whole extra thing. The frequency response on the camera does not match the human eye's response. I do have color sensors, and that is a rabbit hole I'm going to dive down sometime in the future, but not now. You can get devices that are, these things are bizarre and awesome and cool. LED tester, where is it? LED tester, I'm not even sure of the right, lights basic 5, no, Rhino, no. I've got to find it again. But there is something that I came across just recently on a podcast, which was about a device that is used in test rigs that has a piece of optic fiber attached to it. So what you do is you have one of these devices attached to your test rig, and then the pressure plate that comes down onto the top of the PCB has an optic fiber mounted in it that aligns with the position of LEDs on the board. So you have one optic fiber per LED, which then routes that light back up to the sensor, and then the sensor analyzes the wavelength and intensity of the light that it is detecting. So you can, in your test rig, you can turn on an LED, and then you can analyze the output of the LED to see if it is the correct color, if it is the correct level of illumination, etc. So you can characterize the LEDs automatically as part of the test process. Yeah, very, very cool. Color marker detector. Oh, Scott says pressure plate is next test-o-matic squirrel. No, it is... there are other squirrels to chase before the pressure plate. The pressure plate is coming. It is getting very close. But no, the next thing that I really need to do, there is a whole series of things I need to do. The very next thing is, oh, I thought they were there, but they're not. I need to assemble, I still haven't actually assembled one of the new test-o-matic PCBs. And part of the reason for that is I'm waiting for the 4-channel USB hub chips to arrive.
Scott Miller said, pressure plate is next test-o-matic squirrel.
The hub chips are on their way, but I have not yet received them. So, if I get a chance, I will assemble one, but without the hub chip, and then I'll add that later, because I want to get on with testing the rest of the circuit, and I can easily just hand solder one of those hub chips in place. I just won't have USB functionality to pass through to the device under test. But I need to validate the rest of the design anyway. So, oh, Scott says spontaneous assembly live stream when they arrive. Maybe. I could just go live with no warning, and if anybody happens to be here, then they happen to be here. Yeah, Yeah, I could do that. So I need to assemble that. I then need to design the mechanical mount for the module, because the version that I've got so far, I am feeling a little bit of stiffness and soreness from yesterday's training session. If I switch over to here, so this, the most recent module, but it is still out of date. You can see it's got the IDC connectors on there instead of, where is it? Oh, it's in the box. Instead of the version with the edge connector. So I need to replace the lower PCB. I also need to make it with pogo pin holders instead of putting the pogo pins directly into the PCB. So you can see here, this has got the little pogo pins are soldered straight into the PCB, and they shouldn't be, because they need to be in production when you're doing hundreds or thousands of boards. These pogo pins don't last forever. You need to be able to replace them, and that's what these pogo pin sockets are for. So the new version of the board will have sockets with the pins in them, and also it needs to have a slot on the side. So I need to change the width of, I think the top layer is going to end up coming out like an extra 5 millimeters on the sides, so that the module can sit into the chassis and then slide forward to engage with the edge connector. And then it's going to need some spacers and then another piece further down here. So basically my point is I need to redesign this and then redesign the chassis. And then switch to this screen from the existing touchscreen. And all of that is before I get to the point of, am I running out of puff? Yes. And that is before I get to the point of the pressure plate, which will come down over the top of the chassis. So I've got to design the base first, and then I can design the gantry and the pressure plate. Now, getting way back to that other comment, some Call It Fun said, yeah, laying out your board with hidden heat map Easter eggs. Yes, the thought that I wasn't finishing there is by tracing out something inside the PCB and then running power through it while it's on the test bed, with the thermal camera, you could probably see the tracks inside the PCB. Yes, hidden thermal Easter egg. I am definitely running out of puff. So I'm going to go, because I'm zonking out. I am really zonking out. So thank you very much for coming along. I'm going to try to get image processing working on the thermal camera. Yeah, so my goal is that by next week I should be able to run the thermal camera and show you either just capturing an image or ideally some way of displaying live images. Like having a live video feed would be really nice, but it's not actually necessary for my application. All I need to be able to do is capture a single frame on command and save it as an image file. So, yes, Michael says, John needs some ice, ice, baby. Yes, I do. Yeah, so I don't think I'm actually going to be getting full video out of it, but by next week.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Scott. But by next week, I want to be able to capture an image off that thermal camera and be able to just open it and see an image, a visual representation of what the camera is pointing at. That's my goal. Donna says, bye all, John. Go relax and watch some more of the CJI. I will. No spoilers, please. There are going to be some crazy matches in today's semi-finals and finals. And the super fights. Yeah, the Mackenzie Dern versus Fionn Davies fight is going to be very interesting.
Outside the box said, Uru.
because Fionn is a phenomenal jiu-jitsu fighter. She's so good. But Mackenzie, since she's been off doing MMA, she used to be the best in the world, and she went off to do MMA, and now coming back to jiu-jitsu, I just don't know. I don't know. She could be ridiculously tough. So yeah. Is the camera info on Discord? I don't know. Yeah, yeah, that'll be a very interesting one. I want to see what happens. The old guard versus the new guard. And of course, Craig versus Gabby. I don't know if it's going to be serious or if it's going to be hilarious, but I am, yes, very interested to see what happens with that. Craig makes everything hilarious. Whatever he does, he makes it funny. So, I'm going to go and have a little rest, stick on some CJI, play around with capturing frames off this, I think. Maybe I might even try to do that this afternoon. And I will see you all next week. I might do, I think it was Scott suggested, a, oops, new hex calculator, minus 20C ought to be FFEC. Okay, yeah, so I don't know how the negative values are going to be done, but I'll figure that out. Stephen says, someone wins each of the matches. Spoiled it. And Jordan said, update the repo. Yes, I will have a go at doing some Testomatic stuff this afternoon. Okay, I'm going to go now. Jeff, you were here as well. I didn't even see you there earlier, but thanks for coming. So, thank you very much. Have an awesome week and go and build something awesome. Bye.